let's quickly talk about the do's and don'ts of audio content. The whole thing here is that if you have audio content, whether you have it for a commercial purpose or you have it for an educational purpose, you got to really pay attention to the best practices because the thing is, you don't want to bore the listener. You don't want to piss them off. You have to have a clear goal. You have to have you have to have a message that resonates with your audience. Okay, so here's an overview I really want you to really pay attention to. Let's say you want to introduce audio to your media mix. Right now, you're using all kinds of channels to actually convey your message. It can be a video, it can be mobile, it can be content like regular content writing, and you want to introduce, let's say, an audio into the whole mix. But do you know what works and what doesn't work? The whole thing is you want to go back to your geography. You want to go back to your demographics. What is your target audience? Where do they live at? You know, what kind of patterns do they have? Behavioral patterns, okay? And when we talk about audio is so important. It's so sensitive that people really care a lot about what they hear, how they hear it, and when they hear it. What they hear, how they hear it, and when they hear it. So you have to think about this trifecta. The next time you think about, let's say, trying to structure your audio marketing, okay? It's really important, and we have actually our team has been researching this for the last 25 years, and we have found that consumers are changing. You know, you have the Generation X, you have Generation Y, you have Generation Z. A lot of players are entering the market right now. Nowadays, you have a lot of platforms where people can consume audio, from Spotify to iHeartRadio. You have a lot of platforms, and you want to throw in the mix, like let's say YouTube. You have a constellation of platforms and players who are trying to get into the audio content marketing space. This creates a lot of opportunities for marketers, for business owners like you, for online coaches like you, for online course creators like you, for webinar presenters like you. But you also have to think about the challenges. So you have opportunities and challenges. What are the challenges? Before I talk about that, let me first say this, boss. Welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. We love having this kind of conversations every now and then to talk about issues that really matter when it comes to audio marketing. And what I want to say here is that the important thing is the challenges are that consumers they're more sensitive about what they hear, and their attention span is very short. If you don't have the right content, they'll just switch to another platform, to another player, to another company, to another whatever it is. But your content has to be captivating. Let me give you a few pro tips so we are clear about what to do when it comes to audio content. The whole thing here is that your goal should be to create great audio content. The first thing you want to do here is you want to try to write in a natural flow. See, the whole thing here is that when we think about audio marketing, audio content, do not try to have some kind of robotic voice or trying to write in some kind of very convoluted, complex language. You want to write as you speak, and you want to speak as you write. Speak conversationally. Talk to your listener. Talk to your audience. Okay, be conversational. It doesn't matter if you are. Let's say it doesn't matter if you want to be formal or informal, but you gotta be conversational, because at the end of the day, when we talk about audio marketing, when we talk about audio content, we are speaking about storytelling, boss. Storytelling. That's the gist of it all. It doesn't matter. Again, I want to be very clear, because a lot of folks believe, well, you know, if I'm a salesperson, if I want to sell my product or service, I need to have a different kind of audio than if I just want to educate. No. At the end of the day, we are telling stories. We're telling stories to educate. We're telling stories to monetize our content. We're telling stories to create a tighter bond between our brain and our listeners. That's what really matters. Okay, so you want to write in natural flow. You want to write as you would speak, using commas and pauses to mimic your speech flow. Okay, that way you keep your listeners engaged and your script sounding natural. Your script must sound natural. Don't you write a robotic script, okay, where you just read as if no. It's all about storytelling. It's all about talking to your listener. It's all about making sure that you are educating them, entertaining them, or inspiring them based on the topic that you have at hand. Okay, boss. By the way, I want to quickly contextualize today's conversation by reminding you of the topic. We are talking about the do's and don'ts for audio content. Okay, what are the things that you have to that, like we have been basing this on 25 plus years of experience and what we have seen in terms of best practices when it comes to audio content. Here is another do for you. See, the thing is, when we talk about keeping sentences short, this is so quintessential. Don't you try to really razzle dazzle listeners with the very long and convoluted sentences. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what you're trying to explain. I don't care if you are speaking about something very complex, such as, let's say, artificial intelligence, or something very simple as, relatively simple as me going to a McDonald's to eat my next meal. The trick here is to keep sentences short. I'm not asking you to dumb down the topic. No, your listeners are very smart. They're maybe smarter than you, maybe, but don't think that they're actually dumb. So the thing is that if you're keeping your sentences short, it doesn't mean that you have to really lower the quality. You can still talk to someone in a very responsible, in a very clear way, in a very I would say empowering way by keeping your sentences short. Okay, now sometimes you have to understand. You want to listen, you want to make it easy for your listeners to follow the storyline. See, the whole thing is, if you have a story, let's say you have a great story, you have spent hours and hours and days and months working on that story, but your listeners cannot follow the story. Boss, this is a loss. This is a double loss. You know why? Because you are losing, you have wasted time and effort and resources to craft a story that nobody listens to. That's the second loss. Nobody listens to. On top of that, you would have wasted listeners' time. And you know what? They ain't coming back. If you keep wasting their time, they ain't coming back. I mean, they have other stuff to do. Remember, when we talk about audio content nowadays, you have so many platforms that actually do a great job at giving you information that you need, that people have choices. Remember that. People have choices, from Spotify to iHeartRadio to Pandora to YouTube to your regular radio station, to Netflix documentaries, to Net Geo, to the History Channel. You have a lot of players in this industry, so competition is fierce. Okay, so please keep sentences short. Going back to what I said about storytelling, talk to people in a conversational way. Don't actually engage in long convoluted sentences. And you always have to keep in mind your target audience, the geography, and the demographics. Let me talk to you about one thing you should never do. Do not add lots of exclamation points, hyphen, and pauses. This is really important. See, the thing is, generally, when you talk, let's say the best trick for you to think about when you are composing audio content for your audience is to think about, if you were sitting in front of them, or if you were just standing up in front of them in a room and talking to your audience, would you use exclamation points like crazy? Like, don't do this, or like, would you use a hyphen and pauses? Like, you got to really pace yourself. That's true, but you have to also keep the whole conversation engaging, right? You can't just tell a story that nobody's interested in, and you don't want your story to be boring, lethargic, lifeless. No, because see, if you actually introduce too many hyphen and pauses, this could make your whole conversation, your whole monologue, so to speak, it will be really lethargic. It will be lifeless. It will be sclerotic. And you don't want that. You never want to introduce sclerosis in your storytelling, right? You got to keep it engaging. You got to keep it very, very interesting in terms of the content you're providing, but also you have to look at what your listener is actually expecting from that content. In other words, what value are you adding for me? Like, what are you bringing to the table? Talk to me about that. Talk to your learner about what really matters, right? It's not about wasting their time. It's about adding value to their life. And it doesn't matter if it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It really doesn't matter. Okay? So if you have pauses, if you have points, if you have exclamation points, if you have hyphen, those make it hard to follow your thoughts because they are designed to be used in written text. Instead, you want to reword your thoughts and put them into short and precise sentences. Going back to what I said about short sentences, okay? Brevity is the key here. brevity is a key word, boss. Next time you want to engage in audio content, again, I'm speaking to you. It doesn't matter whether you are a webinar presenter, whether you are a business owner trying to really bring attention to his or her brand. It doesn't matter if you are an online course creator. It doesn't matter if you are an online coach. It doesn't matter if you are a corporate presenter. You still want to pay attention to those elements. Okay, keep your sentences short and do not try to really have like very long and convoluted sentences. Another thing you should never do. I mean, another thing you should do, not never. You should do. You want to keep the message short overall. See, the thing here is that when we talk about if you have audio content, and unless you have a podcast, unless you have a webinar, unless you have an online course where you need to actually like length is key, where length is really important because the listeners are looking for length. By the way, in general, when you have audio content, whether it is a short ad, a short audio ad you want to put on Pandora or Spotify, brevity becomes important. Okay, you want to keep the message short overall. We're talking about 500 words, 600 words. Okay, this would produce approximately 3 minutes to 4 minutes of audio. And the reason why you want to be short is because people have choices. People don't have time to listen to your brand unless they love your brand. If you have brand evangelists, then you're really good. If you have customers who already love your brand, that's fine. But if they are like at the top part of your sales funnel, like in other words, they just maybe aware of your brand or whatever, you want to keep your message short. Okay, this is particularly important when creating marketing or commercial content. Remember, the longer your audio content, the more you are forcing listeners to listen to it, but the more you have to pay, because if you have to place an ad on national TV or local TV or whatever, those those basically are billed based on the number of seconds or the number of minutes. Okay, so be very careful about that. So I want you to strike the right balance between brevity and substance. In other words, you can actually pack in a 3 minutes audio much information that you would actually pack in a 6 minutes audio or 10 minutes audio. Okay, the bottom line here is that you want to be very clear about what you want your listener to take away from your audio, what you want them to do, okay, and how they can how whatever you are proposing can add value to their lives. See, remember, when we talk about audio in general, don't make the mistake of just talking about your brain, yourself, how great you are, blah, 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 blah. Talk about the value you are adding to the listener. What value are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table? What's in it for me? Okay, what's in it for me? Why FM? Why FM? What's in it for me? Think about that. I want you to think about that acronym. And another thing I want you to do here is before let me just quickly remind you of today's topic. Boss, I'm talking to you about the do's and don'ts for audio content. And the next thing I want you to do here is to actually use different paragraphs when you change subjects. Okay. And the thing is that when you talk about audio content, obviously the listener is not going to watch the content. They're not going to see the paragraphs because this is not like a written text, but they can actually feel the gap. Now, see, one thing is when we talk about storytelling, there are moments, there are pause moments, there are break moments where you can actually show the listener that, hey, listen, here we move from one story to another, or what we have, those are called connectors. So you are able to connect different parts of the same story in a very nice and compelling thread. Okay, and it's really important to when you introduce breaks in your storytelling, you are able to organize your thoughts and structure. You are able to communicate more effectively. You are able to engage your listeners. You are able to tell them exactly what you want them to do, and you are able to show them the value you are adding overall. Okay, and what we love also is that when you actually When you're able to have all those rules very like securely managed, if you're able to pay attention to those rules, you will be able to offer the listener an overall positive experience, positive listening experience. If you ignore those rules, you actually might lose the listener. Remember, you want the listener to follow along. You want the listener to be engaged. You want the listener to ask questions afterwards. You want the listener to actually do the CTA that you want him or her to do, right? The call to action. But for the listener to actually proceed with your CTA, you have to keep them engaged for a long time for them to actually say, okay, you know what? I've heard enough. I'm comfortable. I'm convinced that this is legit. I'm going to take action. But if your listener cannot really listen to your content for a long time, they cannot engage with whatever you want them to engage on. Another do that I want you to do here is you want to choose the voice and role of the speaker. And this is really important. And when you talk about choosing the voice and role of the speaker before you write your content, this is so important because it sets the foundation for the storytelling. Remember, I said before you write the content, you have to choose the voice and role. Now, the role of the speaker, the voice of the speaker can be a team member, it can be a virtual assistant, it can be yourself, it could be anybody else. You can actually outsource it to another person, okay? And it's really important to understand that you need to do this before you write your content. Why? Because this will help you adapt it even more successfully and write a more compelling script. Okay, obviously, if you have a virtual assistant or you have, let's say, an AI derived voice, for example, or yourself, you actually can put yourself in the mind of the storyteller. You are able to engage more. You are able to connect with the geography and the demographics of your target audience. You can actually crack jokes that really relate to that geography. You can crack jokes that relate to those demographics. You can have metaphors. You can have figures of styles. You can introduce in your audio, in your audio content, things that are appealing and resonate to your target audience. Okay, so please do this beforehand. Don't do it at the end when you're done, or when you're really like near the end. Don't do it at that time. You also want to pay attention to what we call the metaphors, the analogies, the figures of speech. Okay, the how do I say this? Like the axioms. Those are important elements. The proverbs, whatever you're using to to have a more colorful storytelling. You need to really pay attention again. Going back to what I said about the geography and the demographics of your audience. Okay, so choose that beforehand. Don't do it at the end. We see a lot of business owners who make the mistake of doing this at the end. Like they actually go into draft mode or thinking mode. They write the content. They have the content written, or they write it themselves. And then after they've written the content, that's when they start looking for a voice and the role of the speaker. The last thing I want to talk to you about is something you should never do. Okay, and the thing here is that, and this is a big mistake. This is a big mistake that a lot of I mean, not a lot, some small business owners do, and they promote services by including monetary values. For example, get my book, copy only for $19.99 for a limited time. Okay, and as tempting as this might be, it makes the message less authentic and personalized. Okay, you want to try to reinforce the notion that each customer is special and will get a discount offer that will be tailored to their needs instead of giving a generic offer. Okay, you need to understand here, if you are trying to extract value from the listener, you gotta first add value. You gotta give value before you can receive. You gotta give. This is not just a law in marketing. This is not just a law in audio content. It's just the laws of the universe, if I can speak that way. You have to understand that in this life, if you want to receive, you want to give, and if you are able to give, you will receive massively. Okay, so when you think about your audio content, make sure that you speak to the listener, and that you are offering value that is way more than what they can give you back. Okay, and so when you have this in mind, you're not going to ask them to buy your book for 19.99 or to actually sign up for your hypothetical seminar for $200 $200 or $300. No, you're first talking about the education you provide. You're talking about the value you're adding. You're thinking about how they can benefit from your overall program. And once the listener sees the benefits for them, they can actually come on board, and you will make sales so easily. You'll be really surprised. So this is the kind of mindset I want you to have, and this will really help you out. And but to close to this conversation, if there's anything I want you to remember, anything I want you to remember here is that education is an excellent use case for audio content. Entertainment also is one of them. So whether you use audio content for webinar presentation to boost your audio brand, to boost your company's brand, to do online course creation, to actually boost your motivational speaker business, or to boost your online coaching business, make sure to always add value. Make sure to always think about the listener. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. So I just spoke to you today about all the do's and don'ts for audio content. I hope I added value to you. I'll see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.